Hello people, we have an awesome tutorial planned for today. We are going to be creating a 3D floor plan using 3ds Studio Max. So let's get going. All right, so let's fire up 3ds Max. This is not a tutorial about using Max from scratch. I'm kind of expecting you to maybe already know just the fundamentals of 3ds Max. I will touch a little bit on some of the buttons and features that we're using, but not in a super deep way, right? So this is Max. This is the default user interface, right? So if you install Max fresh, this is basically what you will see, right? The first thing that we want to do is set up our units, right? And Max has, I would call it, 2 different levels of setting your units, right? So we are going to go into customize, then we're going to go to unit setup. All right. Now, when you go here, notice that you see system units, then down here you see display units, right? So we're going to go into system units and we are going to set this to centimeters. All right. So you're going to check that, choose OK. Then for our display units, this is the units that it defaults to when you're making adjustments in the viewport. We're going to put that on decimal feet, right? Now, this is totally up to you. You can choose whatever units you're comfortable in. But for our tutorial today, I'm going to highly recommend that your system units be centimeters, right? All right, so we're going to choose OK. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to take a look on the floor plan that we're going to be using, right? So I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Import here. All right, so I'm going to go to my desktop. That's where I have my files. And right here I have a floor plan. So I'm going to click that. That's a DWG. Then it's going to show me this dialog. And basically what this is saying is that the incoming units that you see here is centimeters. And I'm going to click this rescale button. I didn't have to because it's saying the incoming units is centimeters and my system unit is centimeters, so everything is in alignment. But if you were importing a plan that maybe was done in meters or a different unit, you would want to click this option so that it rescales your plan. All right, so we're going to choose OK, and there is our floor plan. All right, so now that we have the plan imported, we are going to head on down to the bottom here and we're going to choose the maximize viewport. Ensure that you select this viewport, you go maximize. All right, so this is the plan that we are looking on here, right? And just to get a general idea of what we're looking on here, so we have kind of a patio area here. We have a little kitchenette here with maybe a seating area, television, and of course we have our bedroom here and another little patio that is right here, right? All right, so let's begin with perhaps doing the walls, right? So if we start to put in the walls like so, and put in this wall here, that wall there, we have a little door here, and then we also have a doorway opening here. All right, so that is going to be our first plan of action. All right, so a little bit about the interface, right? If we look here, these are kind of the main icons, or I guess you could say the main, where most of the features are for Max. So we have create and modify. So we're going to be using these 2 things. We're going to create with things that are under the create menu, and then when it's created, we're going to modify what's on in our viewport. So we're going to go to create, then we drop down one menu below create, and these are the different things we can create. So we're going to create geometry, which is the first one. Then we drop down one more level again to say what type of geometry we want to create. So in this case, we want to create AEC extended objects. And then we drop down one level again, and these are the type of AEC extended objects that we're going to create, right? So if we kind of zoom back out here, we want to start tracing out most of these walls. So we're going to hit the wall tool, and over here we have the width of the wall. So we're probably going to want the wall to be maybe 6 inches. So I'm going to type 6, put the inch sign there. And then the height, let's make it about 9 feet. Oops, let's make that 6 inches. All right, which is the same as 0.5 feet actually. So that's why you see it converted it there, because in our units, we did actually select decimal feet. All right, then we're going to make the justification be on the left. That is going to be where we want to hold the wall when we're drawing it, right? Which side the wall is going to be justified to, the center, the left, or the right. All right, so with that said, we can start to draw our walls, and we're just going to do a rough sketch of the wall. It doesn't have to snap to any of these lines here. It just needs to be a rough kind of sketch. All right, so I'm gonna start here like that. There we go. Yeah, maybe something like that. And I'm gonna right click to come out of the tool. Now notice that these walls are deliberately kind of very crooked, right? They're not exactly precise, but that's okay. We're gonna fix that later. I'm gonna put another wall in here like that, and I'm gonna put another wall here like that. All right, so I think we have most of it here. Oh, this is going to be like a kind of a balcony. So I'm going to right click to come out of the wall tool. I'm going to go back to wall, and I'm going to change the height to like maybe 4 feet. And then I'm going to just do a rough sketch here of the wall. There we go. All right, so now we have just a rough kind of layout of the walls of the building. All right, so now that we have this laid out, what we're going to do now is perhaps start to make these, to get ourselves a little bit more organized. So we're going to open our Scene Explorer here, and that's going to bring up our Scene Explorer. That's over here. I can adjust the width, and this is basically going to show us our layers. We want to make sure that we are on the Layers tab down here, all right? And this is going to be showing our layers. So this 3D floor plan, or at least the 2D illustration of it, is on a layer called 3D floor plan, right? And then everything else is on the default layer. All right, so what we're going to do now is, well, let's hide this floor plan layer here. So, or rather, let's isolate this layer, the balcony wall here. So I'm going to right click and choose isolate. So this is the only thing that we're going to see here. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to start to straighten these walls, right? So in order to do that, we're going to use our snap. We're going to turn it on by clicking on it, but also we want to bring up the snap options by right clicking on the same button, and it's going to bring up our options here. So when we're here, we want to snap to our vertex, right? And if we go to options, we want to ensure that we have axis constraints on. That will allow us to move in individual axes while we try and align these walls. All right, so we're going to click on the wall here. And remember before how we went to create, and these were things we could create. Well, now we're going to head to the modify tab, which is here, right? And well, what do we want to modify? When you select the wall, you see the modify tab says wall. So then what we want to do is expand this down and choose vertex. And that now allows us to be able to select the vertices that makes up the corners of the walls. Now up here, we're going to head to the move tool. So that will allow us to move the vertices. And while we're moving, we're going to be able to snap to these points. So we're going to move on the x-axis here, snap to that point, and that will give us a straight line. We're going to move on this axis here, and move on that axis there, and move on this axis here. So notice that we're now getting these aligned to 90 degrees. There we go. All right, great. Now we're going to right click and choose and isolate. That will show us our model again. All right, now we're going to go over here and we're going to click on the vertex tool here. That will take us out of the tool so that we're able to select other objects. So now we're going to select this and this here, and we're going to isolate them. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. This time around, we are going to go here and go to vertex, select the vertex here, and we're going to just now move this on the X so it's aligned here, move it down, click on this line here, and there we go. So now this is perfectly aligned like that. Okay, so now we're going to end isolate, and we're basically going to continue that process for the rest of the walls. I'm going to go ahead and do that quickly. So I'm going to grab this wall here and isolate that. And then I'm going to go to modify and click on the vertex tool. All right, so now I have access to the vertices. So I'm going to be moving this here. And when I'm moving each one of these, make sure you grab the point on the axis. All right, make sure you don't grab in the middle. I want to either grab the Y or the X. So there we go. Now it's going to ask me if I want to weld the points. I'm going to say yes. Let me redraw that one. There we go. All right. So right click and isolate, and let's do these internal walls now. Now, right before I go any further, let us save, and I'm going to go to save as, and I'm just going to save it to my desktop for now. I'm going to call it 3D floor plan. All right, that's great. Okay, so now that we're saved, let's continue with the interior walls. So I'm going to isolate these two, and it's a good practice to usually isolate. It's easier to get stuff done. So I'm going to go to modify, and I'm going to expand this and choose vertex. For this one, I'm going to actually make it justified on the right. So that way, when I go to vertex, I can align it here. There we go. And this one, I'm going to just align it like that and align it down here. There we go. And might as well just fix this line here. So, oops. I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna select this wall here, go to vertex, and maybe just select both of these and just align this like, okay. Now let's do the same for this guy here. So we need to select this guy here and align to here and align like that. Okay then, so let's end isolate, and I think that is pretty much it. Let's just get this last one here. Let's go to the move tool, and there we go. Good. So now would be a good time to save. So I'm going to go to file, save as, and then I'm going to hit this plus button here so that it saves it as 0, 1, so we can save progressively. All right. Now that we have all of these walls in, let's put the floors in. So to do that, let us hide the plan for now, and we will just draw in our floor. So we're going to render our 3D floor plan maybe something like this. So we're going to maybe want to see different floor patterns in these different areas. So hence we're going to need different solids. So we could use the under create, then we go to shapes, and we could use our rectangle tool, or we could use our line tool. So let's use a line tool. And what we'll do, we'll go to a top view, and we will also go to our perspective and change this to a top view. There we go. Oh, we actually have a line here that's lean. So let's correct this before we go any further. So let's go to vertex, and we're going to make sure we have our snaps on, and we're going to move this to snap there. There we go. Let's turn this back off. All right, so let's use our line tool now. And with our line tool selected, let's turn snaps off, and we're going to draw our floor. Now, I'm just going to draw it deliberately to kind of miss where the floors are, just to show you guys a method of how we can do this. Let's put it in there. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is go to modify, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to turn on snaps, and I'm going to grab the X and Y and just snap it to these edges. there. Snap this here. Snap this one here. There we go. All right. Let's switch back to a perspective view. There we go. We can fix this one here. There we go. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a modifier to this. So we're going to come here, turn this off. And then we're going to go to our modifier list and we're going to add a modifier called extrude. And we're going to extrude it -6 inches. There we go. Looks pretty good. Now we're going to name this floor. All right, there we go. I think we still need to correct an issue here. So let's go back to top view. And then we're also going to go to wireframe. There we go. So we're going to go back to line and click vertex. And we're going to fix that like that. And we're going to fix that like that. There we go. All right. So let's head back to shaded view and perspective view. And let's go back to shaded view there. Okay, good. So let's go again and save as. Okay, so now for this section here, what we're going to do is use the same method. We're going to go to a top view and we are going to go to create and go to lines, and we're going to choose lines here, and we have the snap on. Usually I don't like to snap when I'm drawing. I would prefer to turn off snaps. And let's go to wireframe here. Usually I prefer to turn snaps off, then I draw. So I'm going to draw it here. And I'm going to draw it pretty rough. It's okay if it's not neat. Oops, I missed there. So I'm going to press backspace, get it there and choose close. All right, now I'm going to go to modify and select these edges here. And now I turn on snaps so that I can snap them to these edges. So this is an approach I use when doing snaps, especially in 3ds Max. I rather to draw the lines rough, and then I use the snap tool. Let's snap this here. Yeah, maybe I'll snap this one here, there, and snap this one here. All right, great. So now go to shaded and perspective. I'm going to do the same thing again. Go to file and go to extrude -6 inches. And there we have our floors all done. Okay, great. Now it's time to put in some windows and doors. So if I turn on my scene explorer, or I can just right click and choose unhide. Okay, there's my floor plan. So I have an idea of where the doors are. All right, so now to insert doors, I'm going to use the door tool, and it's a tool I haven't used very often, but it's always fun to use in 3ds Max. So Max does have a door tool. So you go to create geometry, and then we're going to go to doors, and it doesn't matter what type of door because we're pretty much going to change the door to what we want. So in this case, I'm just going to choose a sliding door. Now, the best way to do this, let me just right click and go to isolate. Now I'm just going to put the doors in and then I will adjust it afterwards, right? So I'm going to use my snap tool again. I'm going to right click the snap tool, and this time I'm going to choose edge segment. So this will snap to the edges. You can see it there. Let's put this to the side, and then I'm going to grab the sliding door, and I'm just going to click and hold and drag. Doesn't matter where I put this right now. Then I release, then move to set the thickness, click again, and then up to set the height. And there you go. The door is in. I'm going to do the same thing again here. So click and hold and drag, click here for the thickness, then for the height, and that's it. I have my doors in. Now I could go into modify and click on this door here, and I'm able to change things like the height. And what you see happening is that the doors are actually cutting the wall, which is pretty cool, right? All right, good. So I'm going to set the height to probably about 7 feet, and I'll set this door height to 7 feet. And I'm going to end isolate and I will just move the door into the position. So I'm going to turn off snaps just to make this easier. This down. And when I move it down, it will automatically move the door as well. So I'm going to adjust the width. I can kind of see where the width is here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to move it down. Let me see if I can see where this is. The door is somewhere here. And then I'm going to extend the width to here. There we go. Now I know the doors are looking weird, but never mind that, because we are actually going to hide these doors and change the doors anyway. All right. We just use it to cut the walls easily. All right. All right. So let's take a look at our floor plan to see where we're at. Oops. Let's select the floor plan, isolate. All right. So we added in this door and that door. We have a door here and a door here, so let's add those in. So to do that, I'm just going to isolate these walls here. I'm going to go to create. I'm going to choose this time maybe a pivot door. I'm going to turn on snaps again, and we'll just click and hold and drag, then release. Then click once for the width, then click for the height. I'll do the same thing. Doesn't matter which side I turn it. All right. Looking good. And the isolation. All right, let's move these doors into place. Let's turn off snaps. Okay, good. Like there, and go to modify and set the width, height to 7 feet. Do the same for this. The width, height 7 feet, and a width like about that. There we go. All right, looking good. We're going to also change out these doors for the final product. All right, now for the furniture and the doors. Now to insert furnitures and doors, we are not going to be modeling it. Perhaps we can do that in another lesson, but instead we're going to be using some resources from the internet. Okay, so to access some of these models, what we're going to do is head over to the 3D Warehouse website, right? And here is where we can find a lot of stuff. If we take a look here, I'm going to just close this so we can have the model here to look at. If we drop the model here, we can see that we have like a 4-seater with a table that's here. So we can just search for table or maybe dining table. And there are quite a few that we see here. Actually, this one looks kind of good. So I'm going to hit download SketchUp file. And the great thing about 3ds Max is that it will open SketchUp files natively. So I can actually just drag it straight into Max and just give it a while and click. There we go. All right, lovely. Now, as these objects come in, let's try to keep ourselves organized and put them on layers. So we are going to open our Scene Explorer here. All right, let's put this over here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just put this on a layer. So while they're selected now, I'm going to just click this plus icon here. Let's make this a little bigger. So to create new layer, and I'm going to call this, I normally name my stuff starting from the broadest category and go down to more details. So for example, I'll call it furniture, then dash dining. There we go. So now this is on dining layer as well. All right, this is great. Now I must also give a heads up that when you're downloading models from SketchUp, one of the most trickiest things to deal with is going to be flipped polygons. When I carry the model into Max, it looks fine, but if you have flipped polygons, it will affect the rendering process much later, and you will have to fix those issues manually. So what I normally do is when I import models, I normally just check to make sure that I don't have any polygon errors or flipped polygons. Make sure that the model is clean. Now a good way to do that is you're going to go in your Studio Max and let's put this to the side. All right, so we go to the plus here and we go to X view, and then we're going to change this to these. What these do is that it highlights possible issues within the model. So for example, face orientation, this is a good one, especially when inserting SketchUp models. it will tell us if the faces are flipped. So we're going to pick this. All right. Now, notice down here it says no selection, and that is because it will show us faces that are flipped based on the selections that we do. So let's zoom out here. That's good. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click this. And if you notice, it's not showing us any highlighted faces, where there's a little bit here. If I kind of zoom out a little, you can see where it's saying that the faces are flipped. But if you zoom in, you realize that this is actually happening inside this chair area here. So that is fine. So pretty much this model is good. Like this area here, it's happening inside the model, not outside. As soon as you zoom in, let's see here. Oh, there's actually one face here that is flipped. You can see this in the green. So these are areas where you will potentially have issues when you render. It doesn't mean that you may have the issues, but it's maybe. So if you download a model and there are too much of these issues, then you want to just get another model to save yourself work later. All right, cool. So we can just click on this here and we can just turn it off. And let's go for more model hunting. All right. So if we go back to our website here, we can also look for sofa, and there's a bunch of sofa there that we can pick from, right? So we are gonna pick out some that I already searched for already. So like these sliding doors are pretty good. So let's download SketchUp file and then drag it into Max. There we go. All right. Before we do anything, of course, we are going to put it on a layer. So we're going to click the little layer button here, and then we're going to call this door dash sliding. All right. Okay, good. Now, if you notice here, we have all these other layers. Now, these layers are the layers that the model was built on. So we don't want to use these layers. Whoever built these models, select that, choose delete. Good. So that makes things a little bit clean for us. So we have the sliding door on one layer. Click this button here and it will select everything that is on that layer. Sorry, door sliding. All right. And then we can move it out like that. So the idea is that we're going to hide these doors here and then replace it with these much nicer doors that we downloaded from the marketplace. All right. Now we're going to look for more furniture in just a bit. As a matter of fact, let us look for the doors. All right, so if we type door, there's a bunch of doors here that we can use. This one looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to download this one. There we go. Drag it into SketchUp. Into 3ds Max. There we go. And then I'm going to put it on its own layer there. And then I'm going to call this door, maybe dash single. All right. And I'm going to delete the layer that it came in on originally. Okay, so we'll work with these for now. Now, before we start moving these into place, right now, these are all grouped objects. So there are like a lot of objects, but we want to just compress it down to a single object to make life easier. So for example, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to say ungroup. So now you can see where each of these are different objects. Let's undo that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this door here. I'm going to isolate it and I'm going to select maybe like the frame, and I'm going to go to attach. I'm going to go to modify. Then I'm going to go to attach list, and this is my attach list here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach everything to this frame. So I'm going to hold Control and press A to select all, or I can just go here and go select all and choose attach. All right, great. So now this is one object. So if I look back in my layers tab here, this is now one object, right? And I can just rename this and I'll just call it the same thing. I'll call it door sliding. All right, lovely. All right, so we're gonna end isolate and we're gonna do the same for the dining table here, right? So we are going to ungroup. Then the table here is a group by itself. The chairs are all copied. So to make this more efficient, I'm going to delete those chairs and I'm going to just attach one chair and then make a copy of that one chair. That would make it a bit more efficient on the file. All right, so I'm going to select this table here. I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to isolate it, and I'll probably select the ground, the floor here. It's still in a group, as I can see here. So I'm going to go to ungroup again. There we go. And I'm going to go to attach list and attach everything. And then I'm going to call this table. I'm going to put furniture dash table. All right. And of course, I'm going to save as. Again, always a good idea to save incrementally. And isolate. I'm going to do the same thing for the chair. Isolate. And I'm going to ungroup this and maybe select the seat. And that's still grouped. So I'm going to group it again. And I'm going to ungroup it again. A lot of groups here. There we go. And I'm going to go to attach list. And I'm going to attach everything again. And I'm going to call this furniture dash chair. All right. Then I'm going to end isolate. All right. Now we do seem to have some polygon issues here. Now, if we look at the actual polygons, so we can switch to a edge faces, we can see that the polygons are intact. So it isn't a, you would say, a polygon structure error, but rather it's a smoothing error. Right, so to correct that, I'm just going to add a modifier on top of this called smooth, and I'm going to choose auto smooth, and there we go, all good. All right, so now I'm going to put back these chairs. So I'm going to hold shift and move. It's going to ask me if I want to make a copy. I'm going to say make it an instance, so that way if I edit one chair, it will edit the other, but more importantly, it saves on your memory and it makes the scene a bit lighter. So I'm going to select these two chairs and I'm going to copy this here, make it an instance again, and I'm going to choose rotate. And notice that rotating at some fine degrees here. So I'm going to undo. I'm going to turn on angle snap, which is this. So that will allow me to rotate at 5-degree increments. So 180. All right, so now this is more efficient, and so is this. Now you might notice when you're moving around, you might get these flickering, right? So maybe if I'm close, you will see that it disappears. But when you are a particular distance away, you will see flickering maybe here. And the reason you're getting this is not because the two faces are exactly on each other. It is because of the scale, the system unit that we are drawing in. We're actually drawing in centimeters. And usually when you are modeling something that's large in a unit, in a system unit that's very small, you can get these visual issues, right? So the way you can visually fix that quickly by just going to your viewport settings up here and then going to viewport clipping. And if you notice, you will get this bar that's right here, and this is your viewport clipping. So if you adjust this as you go up, it will clip your view. So now if I move, notice it's kind of clipping into the model. So the idea is that you want to adjust the clipping very close, but just above this point here, maybe like that. There we go. And now no more issues. The only downside is that if you zoom all the way in, you'll start to get some clipping, but it's fine. We don't need to zoom all the way in that close for this model. So that is how you get rid of those visual issues there. All right, let us continue. So we're going to move these doors into place. And the idea is that we're going to actually hide these doors. So to do that, we're going to create a layer, and we're going to say create layer, and we're going to call this doors hidden. There we go. And we're actually going to add this to that layer, and we're going to turn it off. So we'll be left with the opening right there. And we're going to just put this into the opening there. We can pretty much just kind of eyeball it. All right. The height is a little different. So, and the width is slightly different. So what we're going to do is we could adjust the door width to match this window, or we could modify this model to match the width. Either solutions will work. So I'll do one of each so I can show you guys how to do that. Of course, if we wanted to match the opening to the door, we would just have to turn on back the original door. That's this door. And adjust the height. I think that did it. Let's turn it back off. There we go. Doors are all in. All right, let's do the opposite now. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to hold shift and move it again. I'm not going to choose instant this time. This time I'm going to choose copy because I'm going to edit this door and I don't want it to change this one. All right, so I'm going to put the door here. Go. All right, so again, I'm going to click on my 3D Max door and I'm going to make sure that I have this layer on. You can know it's on because the blue highlight is there, and I'm going to choose add to layer, which will make it turn off. And now what I want to do is adjust the model to match the opening. So to do that, I'm going to have to go to my modify, and then I'm going to have to modify this editable mesh by clicking the vertex points here. And this is one of the reasons why we attached everything together. It makes life a lot easier. So if I go to wireframe here, you can see I can select all of these vertex points that's associated with the door, and I can just move it down like that. Now for the width, it might be a little bit different. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it here. So I'm going to select this point here, move it over. Now I am moving it on the axis. That's why everything is moving so nicely. If I was going diagonal, then of course everything would be kind of crazy, but luckily we don't have to do that. So, all right, there we go. So in this case, we adjusted the doors to the opening like that. Okay, so we're going to put the dining table in here. I know we don't have one there, but I think it would be pretty good. We're going to drop that right there. Now, the good thing about a 3D floor plan is that we don't have to detail a whole lot of stuff because the view is going to be pretty far like that. So we don't have to worry about having small details like forks and spoons and that kind of stuff. All right, so now we need a couch. So we're going to save this and then we're going to head back to the marketplace to look up some more items. Let's head back to the marketplace over here. All right, now we want to search for a sofa. So let's see here. I do have a link here. There we go. So this is one that we have. We're going to download this model SketchUp file as per usual. And then we're just going to drag it straight into 3ds Max. Easy breezy. Now, sometimes you might download a model and you might decide that it's not up to the standard of what you would want to show. In this case, I would skip this model because I think the cushions is a little bit stiff. So I'm going to hit delete and let's look for another model. Okay, how about this one? All right, let's download that file and let's drag it into 3ds Max. All right, not too bad. And there's a single one here. There's a cushion. All right, let's work with this one. Okay, so we're going to do the same formula as usual. We are going to create a new layer for all these objects, and we're going to call this furniture sofas maybe. All right, then these are all grouped, so we're going to do our regular thing. So we're going to ungroup it and then we're going to select them. I don't think we're going to use this one, so I'm going to delete that. I think we're going to use these two. So I'm going to select this one, isolate. Maybe I want to keep the cushion separate. So I'm going to ungroup this, ungroup again. Oh, this is actually, oh, the cushion is actually a part of the actual model here. So if I go to editable poly, yep, I can select the cushion. So I'm going to select cushion and I'm going to use, this is under modify, under element selection. I'm going to choose detach and I'm going to detach it cushion. Actually, I'm going to call it furniture dash cushion, maybe furniture dash sofa dash cushion. There you go. All right. Now what I'm going to do, I need to center the point on this cushion here. So in this case, I'm going to head over to the hierarchy option. And then I'm going to go down to affect pivot point only. And I'm going to center to object. There we go. So now it's all centered. All right. So I'm going to hide this. So I just have the couch now. And as usual, I'm going to go to modify and I'm going to go to attach. And I'm going to attach everything to the this element here. There we go. And I'm going to rename it and call it furniture dash sofa. Yeah, that's good enough. All right, so end isolate and unhide. It's asking me if I want to unhide the layers that I've turned off. I'm going to say no. All right, there's my cushion. But first, let's deal with this guy here. So I'm going to isolate it and ungroup it and attach everything. Choose OK. And then I'm going to end isolate. I'm going to call this the same thing. Actually, this one, I'm going to call it dash double. And then I'm going to copy this name and I'll call it furniture sofa, but single. All right, this guy here now, and we're going to isolate it to do the same. I'm going to ungroup it and go to modify and attach. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to call it furniture sofa ottoman. All right, and isolate. Now would be a good time to save. All right, so now we can start to distribute this, but we need a table. So let's get the table first, because there are quite a few tables here, round tables. So we are going to head back to the marketplace here, search for an appropriate table. So I'm going to look for round table, and there are a few here. This one looks nice. I guess maybe this is the center table. So I'm going to download this file. Interesting. This one is actually modeled lean. I mean, 90 degrees. Okay. So before we rotate it, we are definitely going to tidy up this model. So we are going to put it on a layer and we'll call this furniture dash table dash round. All right. Let's do a little bit of house cleaning here. Let's delete these other layers that came in when we imported the models. All right, so these are the layers that we have here. All right, so, well, before we start to do our thing with this, let us check this to make sure that we have no flip polygons. So remember that we go to the plus here, we go to X view, and then we go to face orientation. And we don't see any green highlights, so that is good. That's pretty good. So this is a good model. So this is what you'd want to do most times. You'd want to check the model before you invest in like cleaning it up and all of that stuff, right? So all right, so we're gonna turn this off. All right, so we're gonna rotate this 90 degrees. Oops, there we go. 90. Also, it would be nice if this center point was on the ground. So a nifty tool to do that is to go into tools, zoom out here. Actually, you go to edit and then you go to transform toolbox. You will get this handy little toolbox here. And basically you can say align pivot to the minimum Z axis. So if you think about it, the Z axis would be here. So that would be the Z axis, right? And what it is really saying is that, let's say if this was 10 and this was 0, when you choose minimum, it actually carries it to the lowest point on the Z axis, which tells you which axis it will be on. So that is how this works. Let's see how we did. So we're going to choose Z. See, now if it's not moving, it's because we need to be in the, actually it's grouped. We didn't actually clean it up. So yes, let's do that. So let's isolate and let us ungroup. And actually, we don't have to use the transform toolbox because it's already on the ground and we're going to attach the top of the table to this. So that's good. All right, so what we're going to do is now go to our attach list and we're going to attach everything to the base. We're going to call this furniture table round. Looking good. And isolate. All right, so this is going to be Let's go to move tool here. I'll move it here. There we go. And we're going to copy this whole shift, drag it. I think this is fine here. We just need this one to be a bit taller. So what we're actually going to do is, let's isolate this. I do believe we made it an instance copy. So, and isolate. So what that means is that if I go to edit here and I make this taller, it's going to make both taller. So we don't want that. So what we want to do is to right click and say make unique. So now they're no longer linked. All right. So we're going to isolate this and we're going to select these vertices here and just make it a little taller. Yeah, I think that's good. Let's grab the sofa. Actually, let's put the cushion here. So we're going to hold shift and copy this cushion. Let's go to rotate. Go to move tool. There we go. That's good enough. All right, so we're going to move this into place now. Go to the move tool. Oops. Let's move this here. All right, we're going to copy this here. Actually, let's undo that. In this case, when we copy it, we would want it to be instance, which would make them linked. So if we edit one, the other one will change. All right, so we're going to move this here. I'm actually using the shortcut QWER for select, move, rotate, scale. All right, so make this an instance. And then to rotate, I would press E. There we go. Then I'm going to select these two. I'm going to hold shift and copy them. Just got to grab the axis. There we go. This sometimes can be a little tricky to grab. There we go. All right. All right. Let's select everything, including the table. Let's kind of move it to the side. All right. So actually, what we're going to do is let's copy this over to this side. All right. Now these are taking up quite a bit of space. So I think I'm going to put the couch there. And for these spaces, let's use these chairs. There we go. And we're going to do this from a top view. Sometimes it's easier from a top view. I'm going to copy this. Okay, great. Let's put them a little closer. All right, let's head back to perspective view. Now we do need to make this table much taller. So we're going to go to edit mesh here. Let's isolate this table, make it way taller, and isolate. Yeah, that's looking much better. Okay, great. Let's get these doors in here. You could use the 3ds Max door actually. I mean, in this case, if you're okay with it, you can actually go to modify and change things like the open, degree, angle. You can actually change the number of panels on the door and all of that. So let's see here, door thickness, increase the number of panels. There it is. We could make it beveled. So you can use this door if you would like. Actually, I think it's better just as one panel here. So that one is fine. For this one, let's use the SketchUp door for this one. So I'm going to, well, I need to adjust the door to match here. So I'm going to, let's move this door over here. Let's adjust the height, adjust the width, and let's hide the door. Oops, wrong door. There we go. Okay, let's get this couch in. All right, so now what we have is the bed and the kitchenette. So let's head back to the marketplace. All right, so let's head over to the marketplace and look for kitchenette. This one is a pretty good one. So we're going to hit download SketchUp file, and then we're going to grab that SketchUp file, carry it into 3ds Max. All right, so of course, before we do anything, we're going to put it on a layer. So we're going to put it on this kitchen layer. and we're going to isolate. Okay, let's ungroup. There are quite a bit of groups here, so we're going to group a few times. All right, and I think we can get rid of the top. Let's keep the backsplash. So I'm going to hold Alt to deselect the backslash, and then I'm going to select one element and go to attach, and there we go. Everything is attached. All right, let's delete these other layers that we have here. Delete them. All right, and isolate. We're going to drop this kitchen here. Okay, let's get the TV in. Let's look for curved TV. This one looks good. Let's drag it in, this over here. There we go. Let's put this on a layer, call it TV. Luckily the TV is really one object, so that's fine. The only thing is that I would want to center the midpoint here. So for that, I'm going to use the transform toolbox, and I'm going to center, so it's now there, which makes it a little easier to manipulate. So grab this here, and I'm rotating. Shortcut is E, 90 degrees there. Let's get the console. So let's type console. These are looking nice. This one is looking good. Let's download this one. All right, let's put it on a new layer, and let's call it furniture console. Let's isolate everything, and we're going to ungroup and ungroup, and we're going to attach everything. Yes, so now it's one object, and we're going to call it the same thing as the layer. We're going to call this object furniture console. Lovely. Okay, let's look for dresser, and something modern will be good, like maybe this is looking good. Oh wait, let's and isolate here. Let's put this over here, and we'll get back to that in a bit. All right, let's carry the dresser in. Let's put it on a layer, call it dresser. All right, let's make this full screen. Okay, we're gonna put this over here and put this over here. All right, this is our dresser that we just imported. It's actually one object already, so that is great. We don't need to attach anything. Let's clean up these layers again. So let's delete these. Oh, actually, we want to name this furniture dresser. All right. So we're going to put this in the bedroom. Also, another quick tip. If you are copying objects, so for example, I'm copying the TV here, and I wanted to rotate the TV, I could go to the rotate tool like what I've been doing. But I can also use this transform toolbox and rotate it 90 degrees. So I don't have to always be grabbing this thing and missing it every time. I can just use this guy here. All right. All right. Let's put that to the wall and there. Now, one important thing to note, I think it's better I show you with this. If you click the Z, so you notice that the Z is currently highlighted in yellow. When you click the 90-degree tool, it will rotate about the Z. So one important thing to notice about this rotate tool, it works based on your view. So for example, if I'm looking for more of a top view and I hit the rotate, it's going to rotate like that. But if I hit it from more of a front view, it's going to rotate it like that, right? So your view kind of determines how it will rotate. So that's just a quick point to note. This is a little long, so we could go into the edit mesh tools. Let's put this over here, and we could make it a little shorter here. There we go. All right. All right, now we just need to get the bed. So let's go back here and let's type bed. So there are a couple beds here that we can use. Let's try this one. All right, and let's drag it over. There we go. Okay, the usual. Let's put it on a bed layer. Oops, I mean furniture dash bed. Let's isolate. And let's ungroup this. And Yeah, we can grab one of the feet and then we'll attach everything to the feet. There we go. This is one object. So we're going to call it the same thing. Furniture, bed. All right, let's clean up some of these layers. Oh, we actually have two of these. All right. Yeah, I think that's it. And isolate. All right, let's get two lamps in. Let's drag it in. All right. Let's put this on furniture, bedroom, table. Okay, let's select everything on this layer and isolate. Yeah, we got quite a few objects here, so let's ungroup these things. All right. Okay, firstly, let us isolate the table and attach everything together. Let's call this furniture, beds, table, and isolate. Let's select this layer again and oops, there we go. Yeah, let's select this and isolate again. This time, select the lamp. Actually, let's hide this as well. And we're gonna attach everything here. Call this furniture lamp. We still have two objects that are not attached. Yeah, so let's go to attach again and attach the rest of these objects. There we go. All right. I think we're all done now. Let's unhide the lamp. Oops. Yeah, it's not going to rotate. So in this case, this tool is not going to help me. So I got to use the rotate tool. Then maybe I'll rotate this lamp with this tool like that. Like that. All right. I think the last thing that we could use is maybe a area rug, and a potted plant. Yeah, some potted plants would be nice. Oh, we don't need these. Let's delete these. Let's put in a rug. So we go to create and we're just going to create a standard box. That's our rug. Let's go to modify and set the height to be maybe an inch. And our rug probably isn't an inch, but let's change the color so that we can see it. There we go. And let's call this rug. And we're going to duplicate it here. All right, we're looking good. Okay, so now we're going to get some potted plants. So let's head back over to the marketplace and now plants can sometimes be a little heavy, so we don't want to choose anything that is super heavy. Let's see. This might be nice. Let's try this one. Oh, actually this is flat, so this one won't work. So these, you have to watch out for some of these. We're going to need a full 3D plant in order to do this. So let's try this one here. That's looking pretty good. Let's put it on a layer. Call it plant. Let's isolate it and let's ungroup it. All right, now with plants, perhaps especially with plants, what you have to definitely watch out for is the flipped polygons. So let's take a look on that now. All right, so if we go up to here and we look on the X view and look for face orientation. All right, so notice that everything that is highlighted green is below. So what does this mean? This means that when we render, or there's some applications, some rendering engines, if you're rendering from below, you may not see the faces below because this is the back of the polygons, or rather the normals are facing up. But that's fine. We're going to be doing a 3D floor plan, so we're going to be looking at it from a more top view. It perhaps would be an issue if we were going to look at it from this view. However, we could always solve this by doing some editing to the polygons, but we won't have to do that in this case. So that's great. So we're going to turn that off. Then, of course, we're going to attach everything together. So there we go. And we're going to call it plant. I think we attached something else over here. So wow, we attached the whole thing. So let's undo that real quickly. This is why we need to ensure that it's isolated. And then now we can attach everything. All right, there we go. Now we can end isolate, and then we'll call this plant, and we can position it a few times, maybe like here, duplicate, maybe put it here, here, maybe over here. Maybe we can do 2. There we go. And let us clean up these layers that we're not using. Keep everything nice and organized. There we go. So everything is on layers. All right. Okay, so I think we're in a good position now. Now, the great thing about this is that we have imported most of these with materials. Let me hide the floor plan. Right, we have imported most of these with materials, as we can see here. If the materials aren't looking quite right, remember we can always add a smooth modifier like this bed. There we go. And that seems to have taken care of that. Yeah, so most of these have materials and they look pretty good. So now we need to add materials to the rest of the building. So in this case, the floor, the rug, and perhaps the walls. The walls will mainly be of a color, so that should be fine. So let us first deal with the textures. Now, a really quick way to get the textures done in Max is to just have a library of textures and drag it into the scene. Now, I want to show you a quick tip of how you can do this. Okay, so when you installed Studio Max, it installed with some textures, and these textures are actually pretty decent, right? So I want you to browse your computer, right? So we're gonna go to, let's go here to the C drive. Now, when you go to your C drive, you're gonna go to Program Files, x86. You're gonna look for Autodesk, or you're gonna look for Common. There we go. Then we're going to look for Autodesk Shared. Then we're going to go over to Materials and then Textures. And you're going to see these 3 folders, 1, 2, 3. These are the quality settings. So you're going to look for 3, go into the Mats folder, and then voila, you have a host of high quality textures. If I open this up now, you would see this is pretty decent quality material. And these are primarily architectural materials. We have carpet, floor, a bunch of stuff. And this comes existing with most Autodesk applications. So for example, you install Revit or AutoCAD rather, you can install these materials and they get placed in this folder, right? So this is a good folder to have, all right? Okay, cool. So now, important, what I want you to do is to copy this folder, right? Because we don't want to use it from here. So we're going to copy it and we're going to go back to our C drive. Actually, we're going to go to the desktop in my case, and I'm going to paste it on the desktop. And it is about 2 gigs. So you will need to make sure that you have the space for it. And then we're going to start adding materials to our scene, right? All right, we're going to minimize this for now. All right. Now to add materials into your scene, it is so simple. All you need to do is to just drag one of these materials that you see here. So let's look for tile, and these have reasonable names. That's one of the great things. So maybe you could actually search for floor, and it will find everything that has the word floor in it or carpet in it, right? Maybe wood. This is everything that has wood in it. So this is pretty good. So let's try the wood finish here. Now to get this material here, what all we have to do is to drag it and drop it right there. And that's it. Now you might notice that the material looks with just the color, and that is because the texture hasn't been scaled appropriately. So to fix that, all we need to do is click on this object, and then we're going to add a modifier to this. So we are going to go to here, and then we're going to go to UVW map, and there we go. Now, when you add the UVW modifier, So in some cases, it might be too big or too small. And if you look closely, I'm going to isolate this. You will notice that it has this outline that you see in here. And what it's doing is actually applying the texture in that outline, right? So when you modify the size of this outline, it will modify the size of the texture. And to do that, well, we just need to make sure we have the UVW map that's highlighted here, and we just adjust the width and the length like that. So let's end isolate, and yeah, I think that looks about right. All right, let's do here now. So let's find something else, maybe with the word tile in it, or maybe with the word paving. All right, we can get some great outdoor paving tiles, like maybe this one. And we're going to do the same thing. Add a UVW map modifier. There we go. And we're going to scale it. Maybe still too big. We can actually make these, round these up. So this is about 6 by 6. There we go. All right. Now, as for the walls, you could give the walls a texture if you wanted to, but in most cases, the walls will have just a color, right? Now, by default, if I click on this wall here, you will notice that this is the color that it has. So you could just change the color here to like, I don't know, like a gray or something, and it would change. Now, this is not really a material. It's more like just a color representation, right? Now, to get colors on the walls, we would need to pretty much make, or it's better we just make our own materials, right? So in this case, we are going to go to the material editor, which you can find here. You're going to click that. Now, depending on what you last did with your 3D Max, there are two types of material editors, right? So this is the classic one, and you may open Max with this version, right? This is the Slate material editor. Now, in our case, we're not going to be using the Slate. So we can just go to modes and switch it to compact, right? We're not going to dive too deep on materials. So when you open the material editor, it is going to be based on the render engine that's currently selected in Max, right? And if you're using Max 2024, if I click the little render setup button here, your default render engine will possibly be Arnold, which is the built-in render engine. And if I click the down arrow here, there are a couple other render engines that are here. But in this case, we're just going to use everything default, right? So when you open, so I'm going to close this. When you open the material editor, this is what you get. And these are all material sample slots, right? And notice they're all gray. Now you could just drag this to this wall here. And now this is now gray. But notice when you go down in the settings here, you can see, you can get to choose some presets. So is this glossy paint, matte paint? So I'm going to choose matte paint. Then what color paint? Well, right now this is choosing this purple. So I'm going to click on it and choose like maybe a nice kind of off-white color, maybe like that. That would be good. And you actually see a preview of this material. So if I double click it, you'll get a little preview there, and I can make it bigger. So you can get an idea of what this material looks like or will look like when it's rendered. All right. So let me close that. All right. So now I can just go through and just apply different colors. Right. Now, a good approach to deal with this is let's put this to the side here, and I'm going to just jump on browser, and what you can do is let's just type in Google color snap, and you will see the first thing that comes up is Sherwin-Williams Color Snap, which is great application, web-based application for picking colors, right? And basically it shows you images of interiors or exteriors, and it shows you what colors were used to achieve this. So you can go to get inspired and then choose expert color picks. And then these are all like a combination of colors that has been picked out for you, right? And they have like a theme to it. So for example, if I wanted to get which good theme goes together, I could just grab one of these. So like this one. So what I could do is I could get this material here. I can name it if I wanted to, but by default it's called 02, this is called 03, and so forth. So for this one here, I'm going to do the same thing and choose matte paint, and it's going to give me that same weird purple color by default, right? And I'm going to click on it, but this time I'm going to use the color picker, and I'm going to just grab, let's try this one here, or maybe this one. So I'm going to grab that color, and notice it grabbed that color there for me. And I'm going to go here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say matte material, and just wait a while for this thing to load. There we go. And then I'm going to grab this color picker, grab that color. There it is. And then the last one, I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to just change this first one I had here, and I'm going to grab that one. All right, so now I can use these three colors. So maybe I will drag this to there. I will drag this to the walls, and maybe I drag this to that wall. Yeah, so let's drag this one to this wall. Yeah, there you go. So now everything is pretty much colored. For our area rug, let's go back to full, well, no, let's go back to our materials here, and I can just type rug. And okay, let me type carpet. There we go. Let's try this one. Now this one comes scaled already, so I didn't have to add a UVW map. I can actually just close this for now. And let's make this bigger. There we go. And now for this one, we could actually use the same material. So let's use the same material here. I'm going to bring up back my material editor. The shortcut to do that is M. And I'm going to just use the picker here to pick up this material into this slot. And then I'm going to just drag it here. All right. Now you can ignore that it's not showing, it's not previewing here. That's fine. We will deal with that a little later. All right. We do need to have another television here. So I'm going to duplicate this. To duplicate it, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to do it another way this time. I'm going to choose clone, which is here, and make an instance, and it's cloned right over each other. So I'm going to just move it. And then I'm going to go back to my transform toolbox. This tool here, very useful tool. I'll dock it right here. There we go. All right. I think we are in a good position now. Okay. So now that we have added materials here, there is one more level of detail that we really need to add to make this really nice, right? So for an interior, usually you have the interior walls being a different color than the exterior, right? In this case, the interiors have the same color, right? So in order to achieve that, we're going to be doing some more manipulations with the materials. So I press M to bring up back my material editor, right? And what we'll need to do is apply one material to this side of the wall that's different from the other side, right? Okay. Now, in order to achieve this, we're going to put everything to a gray material. So I'm going to attach this material here. So now everything is back to gray. Then we're going to have to create a material that will apply a different material for inside these polygons here. And in order to do that, we would need to add what's called a editable poly modifier. So we're going to add editable poly. So we have the editable poly here, and this allows us to select the individual polygons of this object. And then what we can do is assign a material ID that will be different than the material IDs on this side, all right? So we're going to do that now. So first thing we need to do, let's select all the internal walls. Actually, even here, we need to do something because the color of the material on this side is going to be different than the color on that side. So we're going to need to split this wall in this area here. So let's do that before we add this here. So let's delete this. let's isolate this so you can see what I'm talking about, right? So right now we're highlighting this segment here. Let me go to the move tool so you can see. So this is the segment that we are highlighting here. And what we're going to do is split this segment. I'm going to turn on edge faces so you can see the edges, and I'm going to choose divide. So now the segment is divided at this point. So now I'm going to go back to vertex. So I'm able to select this and I can move it. So let's move it to here. That's good. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. So we're going to go to segment, select the segment and go to divide. And then we're going to go to vertex and select the vertex here. And then we're going to move that vertex here, right? Because we want this polygon to be a different color than this polygon. And same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. Yep, I think we're all set. All right, so now we go to our modifier list and we add an edit poly modifier. And this is where the trick comes in. Now, if I select the faces like this face here, right? And I scroll down in my editable modifiers list here, I will see that this face has a material ID of 3, right? This face has a material ID of 4, and this face have a material ID of 2, right? So material ID of 3, material ID 3, 4. So basically all of the top is 4 and all of the outsides are 2 and all of the insides are 3. So that makes life a bit easier for us, because what we want to do is give the inside a different material than the outside. Now, this wall here is going to be different, so we're going to have to add another material ID for this wall, I think. Yeah, this, and this, because we want this to be a different ID than the rest. So we're going to make this ID 4. All right. Now, that's pretty much all we have to do here. So we're going to come out of the edit poly tool here. Now, you're not going to see any change yet. Now, what you have to do now is we would have to make what's called a multi sub-object material, right? And I'm going to need a little bit more material slots. So I'm going to right click and say, show me more samples. So this is actually showing me more samples now, right? No, there's no limit to the amount of samples that you can have in a scene, but there's a limit to how much you can show for editing. All right, so I'm going to choose this slot here, and this will be my multi sub-object material. And in order to convert this slot to multi sub-object, I'll need to click this title here, because this is telling me the type of material that it is. It's a physical material. All of these are physical materials. But I want to change it from a physical material to a multi sub-object material, which is found under materials and under general. So I'm going to choose multi sub-object, and it's going to ask me, hey, do I want to keep this material as a sub-material? I'm going to say yes. All right, so look at all of these ID slots now. So on ID slot 1, this is the material. On ID slot 2, there is none, none, none. And whenever there is none, it will just show a black. So now let us add this material to our object here. Now, what do you notice is that most of the sides are black because the material ID 3 is the one on the inside and the rest are pretty much on the outside. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this material into material slot 2. I'm going to choose instance. So if one changes, the other one changes. And then you notice that now the outside has the gray material because that was material ID 2, right? So I'm going to copy it again to, actually, no, I'm not going to copy it to 3. I'm going to copy it to 4 because 4 was the top, I think. Yes, 4 was the top. But we need to actually change the material ID here. So let's go back to here. We have to change this material ID from 4 to 5. Good. So now this is a different material ID. All right. So now we can start applying the material. So in the bathroom, or this room here that's supposedly the bathroom, we're going to apply this material. So I'm going to drag this down to slot 5. and say instance. And there we go. And the rest of this is 3. So I'm going to apply this to slot 3. And there we have it. So now we have all of the inside being one material, which is pretty cool. All right. So what we want to do is to give the bedroom a different color, right? So let's get another color option. So I'm going to go to this slot here and I'm going to say, make this a matte material. And let's choose something that's very like cheerful. So we are going to choose maybe like a yellow material, maybe something that's a little kind of bright. Let's take out the greens. Yeah, maybe like this. All right, great. So now we're going to apply this material into slot 6. And then what we're going to do is we are going to say this material, and this. We're going to set the material ID to be 6. So now it will have that material. All right. So now we need to do the same thing here. So let's turn off edge faces so we can get an exact look at what this is looking like. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing for this one. We're going to apply this multi-material to it as well. Of course, we need to edit these material sides. So all right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select this object here and we're going to add the edit poly modifier, and this material here I believe should be ID 6 and this one here should be ID 5. There we go. All right. Okay, so just a few more to go. This one here, we need to change this ID to, see, this is going to be this yellow ID here. So that is ID 6. All right. Then we have this object here. So this one here, we're going to also apply this. And we're going to do the same thing again, add an edit poly modifier. And we're going to make this ID be material ID 6. And in here, we're going to make it material ID 3. All right. So now we can see the rooms having different colors. And if we wanted to, we could give these surfaces a different color as well. We can give it the brown color here. We would need to introduce another material ID though. So we could select this face here and we could say, let's make this material ID 7. Of course, it's going to be completely black because we don't have a material ID 7 yet. Make that 7, and let's make that 7. And we'll make this material ID 7. Make that 7 as well. And we'll make this 7. All right, so now we just need to add this material into slot 7. We still have these to do. So this needs to be 7, and this needs to be 7. This needs to be 7. This needs to be 7. That needs to be 7. All right, lovely. So we now have our walls painted. Let us save. Now the final aspect that we need to do now is rendering and lighting, right? And this is actually incredibly simple. It used to be a bit complex in 3D Max, but nowadays with the Arnold render engine, it is really simple. Now, by default, when you open Max, you have the Arnold render engine that is selected, right? So if you go into your render settings, so if you go to render and you go to render setup here, you will see that it has the Arnold engine that is selected, and that's the default engine that you see there, right? Now, in order for this to work, we're going to close the material editor. Let's leave this up here. And it is as simple as going to the rendering, the Arnold dialog box, and choose Arnold render view. Now, when you turn that on, you're going to get a preview in your viewport, right? And you need to hit the play button here to get a live preview. And what you notice is that when you move, it actually gives you a live preview here, right? So I'm going to dot this beside this here. So what you're doing, you're getting a live rendered preview. So as you can see here, you can see it rendering in real time, and it is giving you some shadows and shades, but it's very basic, but it's almost there. Now, if I go back to my render dialog box, I'm going to go to render and I'm going to render setup, and it's actually already open. There we go. Now, the resolution is going to determine the ratio of the image. So I'm going to choose 800 by 600. I'm going to just size this up right here. And you can see that it's giving you a render preview that is 800 by 600, right? Now, because we're doing a 3D floor plan, we're going to use this kind of ratio because it's going to be like a 3D view, kind of like maybe like that, all right? And then we're going to do a camera view from it as well. So we're going to make this a little larger, maybe 1000 by 1000. We're going to turn off the ratio lock. There we go. There. So we're going to render it something like this. All right. But before we set up our render view, we now need to set up our lighting, right? So to get our lighting, we're going to move this to the side here. And we're going to go to create light. Make sure that we are on the Arnold, and then we're going to choose Arnold light, and we are going to enable from here the type of light. We're going to say, let's make it a sky dome, and this is going to give us some environment. So I'm going to click, let's click over here once, and then I'm going to move it. Let's turn off snaps. I'm just going to put it somewhere up there. It doesn't matter where you put it, by the way. And then you are getting some more ambient light that's being shown, right? You're also getting a bit of reflections. You can kind of see it here in the ground, right? If I just wait for it to clear up, you can see that you are getting some nice soft light. All right, the next thing to add, we're going to add another Arnold light, but this time we're going to add a distant light. So for this one, we're going to zoom out, click, hold, and drag like that. And then we're going to move this light up in the air, something like that. And notice that we are now getting some shadows. So if we click on this light and go to modify, we can actually adjust the shadows. So for example, if I change it to 1, you can see the shadows are much sharper. And if I change it to like 5, you can see the shadow is getting a little more blurry. So maybe like 10 is a good way to start. All right, so we are getting somewhere with our 3D floor plan. Okay, so now that we have our render basically set up, now all we need to do is to set up our camera view that we'll be using to render out our 3D floor plan view, right? So perhaps the quickest way to do this is to set up your camera view in your viewport first. So we're going to use a view like this, right? And we're also going to go here and we're going to turn on save frame so we get a preview of the rendered view. Then we are going to use the field of view settings to zoom in and then to let our view less skewed. So we're going to use the field of view to zoom in and then the zoom tool to zoom out. So then we get more of an orthographic kind of view, right? And now that we have an orthographic view, let's angle it a little bit so we can see inside and the whole floor plan nicely. Now we are getting, let's see, could try a view this way. I think this way shows a bit more. Now the material on this bed here, I would say could be adjusted because it's really bright, but we'll come back to that. So once we have this view, we are going to go to view and go to create physical camera from view. That is going to save this as a camera view. So now if you look up here, notice that I'm in a camera view called camera 1. I could switch to perspective and this would be my perspective view. So here I can look around in perspective, but when I want to go back to my camera view, which is here, I can go up here and say switch to camera view, and then I'm back. All right, so this is the view that we would want to use. Let's fix this bed material first. So we are going to go back to perspective view and let's bring up our materials. The shortcut is M, and notice that this material is very bright. So we're going to use the eyedropper tool to see what material this bed has, and we can see that it has a couple physical materials, and these are very white. The reflections is very white. So we could override this, I believe, to just choose. We could try rubber, or we could just try matte. And then we would choose like maybe a gray material. There we go. We could even grab the material on this pillow here, which is this, and apply it to the, well, it's going to apply to the entire thing. So we would need to apply it here to replace this material, because this is a multi-sub-object material. Yeah, that's looking much better. Okay, let's go back to the camera view. Okay, I think that view is looking pretty nice. Now, once we are happy with the camera view, now it's time to turn up the render settings. Because as you can see in this view here, if I zoom in, you will see that there's a lot of samples. You're actually seeing the samples here that's used to do the rendering. So to turn up the render settings, we will need to go into render setup. And this is where we now go into the Arnold renderer here. And basically, these are the sampling and ray depth settings is where we want to be, right? So this is going to be your default where everything is set to 2. And this is basically saying, you know, what is the detail level you want to have for the diffuse, which is like the textures, the specular, which is like the reflections, and the transmission, which is mainly going through glass, things like that. Subsurface scattering, that's what SSS means. So things that has a kind of wax-like materials. And for indirect volume, indirect lighting, and if you hover over it, it actually tells you what each of them do. But the moral of the story is that the higher number, the better render. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn these up. So to give you an idea, right? If I zoom in here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to window view. I'm going to go to store snapshot. And what's that's going to do when I click store snapshot is if I come down here to this little window here and I drag this up, it's going to store snapshots. I clicked it twice, so I'll delete that one. It's going to store what the shot is now, right? Now what I'm going to do, if I zoom in here, and I'm going to change these values. So let's try maybe 8. It's going to take longer to render now, but there we go. And you can see it's actually rendering, but it's taking a longer time. So you can see these squares and they're slowly but surely rendering, right? So this is going to depend on your system, right? And the amount of processing power you have, right? But right away, if I should right click this and say set as B, and I zoom in here, you can kind of see what it is now and what it was before, right? So you can see all of this sampling here is gone because it's a much more clear image, right? Now from afar, it might not seem that way. So that's why we had to do some pixel peeping to see what it looks like, especially like in the shadow areas here. You can see all of this is nice and clear. All right. So once the image has finished rendering, once everything is clear, we can go to file and we can go save image, and we're going to save it as a PNG file. All right. So we're going to save it on the desktop. Call this 3D floor plan render. Okay. Now, once we change these render settings, you can see that it's taking a longer time to render. Okay. Now, in order to save our image, right? So this is really just a preview. So we can actually see a live preview while we're editing. We're going to stop this preview, stop it here. And we're going to go back over to our render settings, right? And under common, we are going to go down to the file save right here. So we're going to click that and we're going to save it to our desktop. And we're going to call this 3D floor plan HD render. We're going to save it as a PNG image, right? And for our PNG image, we're going to save it as a 48-bit image. And we're going to do a gamma override of 2.2. This is because we are rendering using linear lighting. So we need to apply that gamma so that it looks decent. And then we're going to hit the render button. All right, so we can see it rendering now. And of course, the rendering process uses a lot of CPU power, right? So if I bring up my task manager here and I bring up my performance, and you will see that it's using all, it's using all 32 cores of my computer, right? So the more cores you have is the faster it will render. And these cores, this is already a fast computer, and it's already gonna take maybe about 5 minutes to render at this quality level. Cause remember, we turned up the quality level quite high. So we're gonna let that run, and then we'll see what it looks like. All right, we're all done. So we can go to our desktop now and HD render PNG file. All right, so this is what our image looks like. It's a nice PNG file, and we can use these for our presentations. Now we do have some errors here we need to clean up, and this is of course because of the ID settings for the wall, the material ID. So we're going to clean that up. But this is how we get a nice floor plan image using 3D Studio Max. Whew, okay, that was a full tutorial. Let me know if there's anything you didn't understand or you'd want to expand on. Let me know in the comments. Maybe I can try and get it in my next tutorial. So stay tuned. Take care, guys.